Nebraska Preps post-game with Damon Benning and Jacob Padilla.
Unbelievable show we've got in store for you tonight. Welcome in to the Nebraska Preps postgame. That's JP, that's Jacob Padilla, I'm Damon Benning. An unbelievable night. We talked about it last week. We said this week should be fantastic, and it did not disappoint. Last week was chalk heavy, right? Outside of Kearney and Grand Island Northwest, we were like, oh my goodness, right? It was chalk city. Tonight, not so much. Unbelievable performances. We try to coordinate this thing when I can get you to answer the phone when you're not at one of your 88,000 high school sporting events. It's unbelievable. You're in every gym or every football facility. It's like, people ask me in the morning, hey, what's Jacob on? I don't know. I have to wait for Jacob to get going because he's probably either going somewhere or coming from somewhere. He needs a little rest, but holy moly, what a day.
Yeah, well, started today with some high school volleyball and wrapped it up with some football. So it's a fun day, that's for sure.
Let's start. We split, right? Yes. We wanted to be able to cover everybody. I had multiple stops. I started with Bellevue West and Kearney, right? It's 6 o'clock start. I'm thinking, hey, we talked about Kearney, well coached, had played Bellevue West before. It would be kind of an interesting game. I said, hey, Kearney plays in a way they kind of hold the ball. Well, they did more than hold the ball. They played with a lead, kept Bellevue West at bay. Bellevue West couldn't get it going offensively. Then they get it going offensively. They find a way to get it tied, end up losing in overtime, 39-38. 41-40.
Yep.
Excuse me, I'm doing my math wrong. It was so crazy, right? Because Kearney gets out to the big lead. They're up 26-13 at the half, and you're thinking, what is going on, right? But, fantastic play. You got great quarterback play. Jack Johnson was fantastic. Kearney, I don't like saying this as a coach. I don't. It makes me uncomfortable. Clearly out-coached Bellevue West tonight. I'm listening to checks. I'm watching what's going on. And I know what Bellevue West is trying to do, right? They want to get the quarterback run game going, and they want to get Luke going. And they're like, I've said this 1,000 times. If anybody listens to our show, Severe and Benning in the Morning, it's like when you get in the gun and you have handoff run game, you better be really, really good up front, or you better have quarterback run game. Bellevue West could not get quarterback run game going. Johansson kind of struggling reading counter, was not very good with gap in terms of how smooth it was. And Richardson couldn't get it going. And Kearney really was in their playbook.
Yeah, and you talked about that coaching staff and just listening. I covered their game last week, obviously, and just listening to him talk after the game and how excited he was for his guys. He was so fired up. You've praised them so much already, they deserve every bit of it. And that was talking about Johansson. That was kind of the one question we were wondering about Bellevue West, because obviously every year it seems like they working a new quarterback. They've had a really good run, but with how little we got to see of Bellevue West this year, we hadn't seen him in a position where he's playing from behind. We made a big deal of them falling behind 7-0 last week.
I think it really came to fruition. We touched on this last week, right? That Kearney had played 4 out of the top 5 teams in the state. The only team that could make that claim. And those first 2 games were fill-ins, right? Grand Island had the issue with COVID. Week 2 was supposed to be Burke. That Burke wasn't playing, and so they draw Lincoln Southeast and Westside. It's a tough way to make a living early, but it paid big dividends late. And really good adjustment at the half by Coach Huffman. Kearney playing a defense where they pressed Keegan Johnson. They played with Riley over the top. Good player. Yeah. Couldn't get him the ball throwing, so they put him in the Wildcat and rode him through the whole second half. So that added the quarterback run game element. Really kept Kearney honest. L.J. Richardson got it going, who's a heavy, strong runner. Bellevue West playing tonight without Mike O'Reilly. Left on the first second play of the game.
Yeah.
With a dislocated shoulder.
Oh,
He already
man,
had
that's
the bad finger. No Davion Hall. It was basically Caden Helms, Keegan Johnson, L.J. Richardson. and
that kind of evens out the playing field. That's kind of the thing about Bellevue West is they had just so many options. You didn't have enough guys to cover them all. So you knocked off three of those guys.
I thought tonight really boiled down to coaching. There was a little lack of execution, and I could hear what Coach Huffman and that offensive staff wanted from the quarterback spot. They couldn't get it. But I thought the game was really turned defensively. I felt like they had Kearney had Bellevue West on their heels all night. Could not figure out the edge run game. Columbus kind of exposed it, and I said, okay, that was without Rogers. That was without Kier really playing a full game. But tonight they had those guys. Now, Kier didn't start. Ryan Rogers played linebacker to start that first series, just to kind of to balance them out. Yeah. But Kearney, fantastic on third down, made big plays, well schemed. And the irony of Bellevue West ties that it's 33-20 with 6:40 some to play.
Yeah, and that's I think the first score I heard. They announced it over at the Elkhorn Stadium, like they were reading off some scores, and I heard that. I was like, "Wait, what?"
Yeah,
that was the first thing. It's the first score I heard. Is like that's kind of my first hint that some wacky stuff's going on tonight.
Right. Just wanted to, and so Bellevue West scores to make it 33-26. Kearney gets the ball back, 5 minutes and some change. Inexplicably, they throw the ball twice. Now Bellevue West has 3 timeouts. Kind of slowed the game down a little bit, gave Bellevue West a chance. Kearney punts. The wind was a factor tonight. I want to get the wind was a factor. If you were going from south to north, you had a distinct advantage. That wind coming out of the south, tremendous advantage. And so with about 3:50 to go, Bellevue West drives real meticulous. 3 timeouts. Fantastic job by Coach Huffman and his staff. Utilizing some run game. Didn't panic. Scored with 20-some-odd seconds left. What does Kearney do? 33-30 with a chance to kick the extra point for the win. They block the extra point. Goes to overtime. Kearney wins the toss. They want to defend. Bellevue West scores on third down. A double reverse pass. Beautifully designed play. It was Keegan Johnson, the Wildcat. The flip to Johansson. Johansson finds Helms.
Wow.
They make the extra point. You're thinking, this is the Bellevue West. What does Kearney do? They score on the first play in overtime.
Oh, it was the first play. Wow.
The wide open. It had been all night. Mr. Double J, Jack Johnson, again. Could not find him. So what does Kearney turn around and do? They go for two. Not kick the extra point. They go for 2. What play did they run? The double reverse.
Oh, man.
Now, they don't throw it. Wasn't the QB special. He kept it. Bellevue West had a chance to make a play in the backfield.
Well, and then had the chance to make a play at the pylon, too. I saw the play. That was a collision.
Tremendous effort. And I almost felt like, you know what it was all over again? It was deja vu. It was Millard North, Bellevue West in overtime a couple of years ago at Buell, when Bellevue West had Millard North dead to rights on the 2-point conversion in overtime and a broken tackle. Millard North converts it. It was an unbelievable game. Unbelievable game, but not to be outdone. Right? And I'll let you run through the scores. Tonight was unbelievable.
Yeah, so that was the first upset in Class A according to seeding. The second one, it was by seeding, but I don't think we're
it was
too
our toughest
shocked by
game
this.
to decide. Now,
Elkhorn South versus Southeast, and that was a 28-7 win for Elkhorn South.
Now that was impressive.
Yeah.
7-7 at the 7-7 at the half. Elkhorn South imposing their will. That is how long have we said this? The last 3 weeks. They're playing good football.
Yes.
That is a dangerous team. We talked to Coach Rosenberg this morning on the show, and they're one of the few teams that's healthier now than when they started the season. Weisler back. A healthy Ben Warren. Makai Nelson Douglas. You're getting Krause playing fantastic at the quarterback spot. Emsick, who's coming off the double knee injury, along that D-line playing better, just impose their will. When you get a guy like Ben Warren late to rip off a 50-yarder to make it 28-7,
you're thinking,
hey, he's fresh, he's healthy. I mean, you come with Krause and Ballard all night, and then that's a team to keep an eye on, right? You just don't want to play them.
Yeah.
They've had 5 turnovers all season. 2 were in one game against Millard South. They take care of the football. They make you value possessions, and Southeast just not dynamic enough offensively.
Yeah, and that's kind of the question that we were talking about all year long. Would they be able to – they've got a couple athletes here and there. Would they be able to get them the ball? Would they be able to make those big plays that you would need to score against a team like Elkhorn South? Because like you said, they're so tough at so many different positions defensively. So you've got to be able to break off a big one. And 7 points in the game there that they just weren't able to do that.
Now, I think people may yawn, but the 2 seed, West Side, 49-29 over Lincoln East. You may think, 20-point victory. This is a good win for Lincoln East.
And that's about the score
West Side.
Yeah, that's about what I expected. I figured Lincoln East would be able to put up a couple of touchdowns there, score some points, but I didn't think there was any way they were going to be able to slow down West Side enough to stay in that game. And so that one definitely went according to kind of what I expected to be. And man, how happy are those the guys over at Westside right now, kind of looking at the rest of the bracket?
So I kind of wondered, right? It's bittersweet.
You would have liked to play against them, but
long. Yeah. All they'd heard about was to be the champs, you have to beat the champs, and Bellevue West was the 1 seed. I actually think Westside is a little disappointed, but before we get them a box of Kleenex and dab their eyes. They got a really good football team next week they got to see.
No doubt. And, so the final Class A game was Millard South over Creighton Prep, 34-20, and it was kind of Prep trying to do what they've done so many times before. They got down big. They scored a couple of times late to try to get in it, but they just couldn't get enough stops to dig themselves all the way out of the hole.
Yeah, for those that maybe didn't see it, TJ Urban, maybe one of the runs of the year in that one. Finally got ran down about the 3 or 4 yard line. He's an unbelievable player. You put him with a Gage Stinger and Antrell Taylor, Taquan Johnson at the running back spot. They have weapons.
Yeah. And I listened to your guys' interview this morning and talking about
with Coach Means.
Yeah, and talking about the way they were trying to, because teams were keying in so much on TJ Urban and that quarterback run game. I saw him early in the year, and they were having a tough time getting him loose and getting him in running lanes. And so that moving him out to receiver, running back, kind of get
like
different
Gage
spots.
Stanger get some snaps at quarterback.
That's a brilliant move. Like
that's
not something that you're going to see very often, but it's a great move to try to get your best player in different positions to where defenses have to try to cover him all over the field.
Yeah. So next week, just going through those Class A scores, you get Elkhorn South, a battle-tested, extremely well-coached football team. We'll take on Kearney, another battle-tested, well-coached football team, who, by the way, went to overtime the first time those two teams met, 28-21.
And that was the game that kind of opened my eyes to Kearney. And
it's good football.
Because obviously, like they played the tough schedule, but I mean they got beat badly a couple of times in that mix there, and you're like, well, maybe they don't necessarily have the horses this year. That's the game that you're like, oh, actually, they've got some dudes out there. And Preston Pearson in that game it blew me away with the way his poise and his toughness. He had made a couple of big throws with guys in his face. And I didn't see the stats or anything today, but it sounded like he had another big game tonight for Kearney.
Yeah.
So you have 2 tough quarterbacks,
tell you what,
2 running quarterbacks. That's going to be fun to watch those two.
Just ground and pound. And it's interesting to see he and Jack Johnson. Those are good basketball players as well, right? It's positionless basketball, but for all intents and purposes, they play the 2-3, the 2 and a 3 in that makeup, and they were amazing. I'm telling you, their resolve. There was no shock and awe, and I truly think it was an advantage having seen Bellevue West before. They came in very businesslike. You could tell in the warm-ups that it was going to be a dogfight, and it was. So we've got Millard South and West Side on the bottom half of the bracket, and I'm telling you, that's an interesting matchup. if Westside is healthy up front and you get a healthy Hurtado and they're good at the outside linebacker spot, you've got Cade Haberman in the middle, it will be strength against strength. Westside, it is very difficult to run the football. And they play that odd front, that three-man front, but they do a lot. They know how to fit in the run game. North South wants to run the football, and that one's something's got to give in that one.
And they're gonna have to break off a couple of big passes in there.
Yeah.
Otherwise, Westside's gonna be able to really key in on that run. We talked about how teams were really honing in on that quarterback run game. They're gonna have to find ways to move the ball in different ways because with some of those guys, Westside has up the middle. It's not going to be easy at all.
Tough sled. Yeah. Tough sled. You want to go through B?
Yeah.
Now,
I guess we can start with the game that I went to, the one that we thought would be maybe the best game of Class B, and it turned out to be
how that works. A little bit of a snoozer.
The biggest the biggest blowout. 41-16 was the final for Elkhorn over Waverly, but they got a safety and a touchdown late after Elkhorn had put in their backups. Got some young guys some snaps, and things went a little awry there. So you take off that 9 points at the end there, and that was a 41-7 ball game.
That's unbelievable.
Yeah,
you could make the case outside of maybe Elkhorn South and Prep that Waverly was playing the best football.
Yeah, they were absolutely rolling, and they were doing it by dominating in the trenches. Obviously, we know their offense. Pound it, multiple running backs back there, quarterback run game, and occasionally hitting the big shot with the pass game. And there just wasn't anything there, no running room. Elkhorn just dominated up front. I was really impressed. Obviously, they've got playmakers at all three levels of the defense, and all three played really well. I was really impressed with what they did up front. And Aiden Betts, 280 pounds, just a sophomore.
Yeah.
He had a really good game. He flashed a couple different times I saw him, but Liam Fairbanks up front there, Crew Bischoff off the edge, Austin Bober, like their whole line up front there really controlled things, made that running tough, kept that Waverly offense in check. And then it was really windy out. I think that made a difference there. Cole Murray really struggled. They didn't really hit any of their downfield throws, whereas on the other side, Grant Gushow, he made some big time throws.
He's pretty underappreciated. Isn't he?
And we've been talking about all year long, like if Waverly opens things up, gives those receivers a chance to go make plays. Would they be able to? And right off the, Aiden Young did not really do much tonight. They kept him in check.
They're a handful outside the numbers.
Yeah, and so on the very first drive,
Christo
had a couple of huge plays, but Graggart was the dude. He had 124 yards receiving in the first half.
Athlete.
Faked a punt, picked up 22 yards, moved the chains, and they went in and scored on that to go up 13-0 and really kind of set the tone for the game. But like I said, right off the bat, get shut down on their first run, and they start throwing, moving big chunks there, and then you get in the red zone, and then they punch it in on the ground. So they were aggressive early on, opening it up.
I really like his game.
Yeah,
and if you turn him loose, he can make plays. He's a good athlete.
Yeah, and he moves his feet pretty well, kind of keep plays alive, always looking downfield. He'll take off and run if it's there. But talked to him, he said today he knows, just throw it up, let those guys go get it. And there were a couple. And the really impressive part is there were a couple of those big plays. They weren't great throws necessarily or absolute dimes or anything because it was windy and that ball was moving around.
Yeah.
There were some big-time adjustments with the ball in the air. Heck, on Graggart's first touchdown, the DB totally got lost. He had no idea where the ball was. The ball was underthrown. Graggart came back and caught it. DB had no idea the ball was even there because Graggart caught it and just took 2 steps into the end zone. The DB turned his head. Was like, wait, what?
He's impressive. He can high point a ball, right?
Yeah.
I mean, he's a good athlete.
Yeah, and I think Elkhorn, might have been 5 for 5 on fourth down, either 4 for 4 or 5 for 5.
Yeah, that's
and
a hard
they did
team
a couple
to
different
handle.
ways.
You have to get them off schedule.
Yeah.
If you don't get Elkhorn off schedule, it's going to be a long night.
Maybe one of my favorite sequences of the night was actually they got backed up. I think it was 3rd and 22, and Gushow takes a shot to Graggart on the sideline. He goes up, catches it with one hand, but he's out of bounds. Very next play, went exact same play right back to him, caught it, toe tap, out of bounds, 19 yards. and then they pick up the first down on the next play.
Yeah,
so
that's
it's
interesting. That is not Coach Wortman's style. But I tell you what, when they show you that wrinkle and they get vertical, that offense is next to impossible to stop. They can play two groups of offensive linemen. They already run the football extremely well. That's a lot to handle. That's the Elkhorn team we thought that they were going to be when the season first started.
And that's good. We talked about early on where you look at the personnel and where they have playmakers. They've got all three levels of the defense. Those guys outside, we know Aiden Young can really do some damage if teams aren't loading up against
him. In a blowout like that without him having to assert himself, that's almost scary.
Yeah, seriously. And so it's really impressive. I think probably as impressive a performance from start to finish as you'll see at any of these games that we were tracking this weekend. But you look on the other side on that bracket, 2-seed Hastings against 10-seed Grand Island Northwest, and we saw this was an 11-point game, 30-19, just a few weeks back when they played. Last time they played
with the 6 turnovers.
Yeah, exactly. It was an absolute garbage game, and just in terms of the cleanliness, and you clean that up, you think it's going to be a little different. Well, 42. You said it was 42-21, right?
At one point,
they were up.
And here comes
up.
Grand Island Northwest. They make the run. You get it tied up, and so I don't understand what happened with the snafu. I'll be interested to see what happened with. Was it an onside kick that I believe kind of bounced or was deflected off a player, and Hastings recovers, and that was basically the difference.
Well, so it was 42-20. So they put up this game on the big screen at Elkhorn Stadium, so I got to catch the end there, and it's 42-42. Jared Sinek drops back and hits the receiver downfield. It popped up a little bit. It was kind of fluttering there. The receiver went up and got it, but fell down at the 1. And 3 plays, Elkhorn tries to get it in, or Hastings tries to get it in, and they stop them. They move them back.
That's not how that offense is built, right? That's basketball and grass.
Yeah.
There's no ground and pound there.
Tackle for loss. Sinek tried to keep her and fumble the ball. They recovered it.
Yeah,
and
how good a player is he?
They tried to run outside. They stopped him, so it ended up having to settle 30-yard field goal, but Northwest goes off sides. So move it up 5 yards, and now from 30 to 25. And from the left hash, with 16 seconds left, they go up and kick the field goal, and they snuck it in inside the left upright there for the 45-42 lead. And then they go and kick it. They try to skip quick it. And it just bounces, skips up off the turf a couple of times, hits a guy, and Hastings get down there and covered it up. It was a bizarre kick. It was perfect for them, but that's got to be disappointing for GI Northwest to have it end like that. But impressive play by Hastings there to kind of close that thing out after nearly giving it away. Then we look at the other side of the bracket, and man, we knew this Bennington-Plattsmouth game would be interesting, especially with Leclerc out, kind of even in the playing field a little bit.
Yeah, this morning I said would not surprise me if Plattsmouth won this game outright, right? They get the big pick 6 to start the game from Owen Prince. I think that set the tone. And then Jack Alexander. It's like, hey, wait a minute. Somebody not named Meneses on this offense kind of controlling the game. Impressive performance from Plattsmouth. And they're one of those teams, I've been watching them all year. Very, very dangerous, right? We talked about the game with Norris, and Norris had to convert the 4th and 16. And I'm thinking, well, this Plattsmouth team is pretty dangerous, right? And I really like Coach DeZuris, and I try to be objective, right? He's a fantastic person, so you want to root for him as a coach, and you watch them as their team is prepared. That is a good football team. I know some, maybe if you don't follow Class B and you look and you see, that doesn't surprise me near as much as some think it would. I said this morning I thought that game would be a tough game. I picked Bennington, but I said I didn't feel good about it just because I liked kind of the way that Plattsmouth was playing, and I wasn't sure. It wasn't Leclerc so much on offense that bugged me tonight.
Against that running game.
It was the defense tonight versus that run game. And you're exactly right.
Because he is the hammer in the back of that defense. He will come up and run support and shut that thing down. And that's kind of what you need against a team like with Plattsmouth with Meneses there. But, yeah, it took a 27-20 lead into the fourth quarter. 67-yard bomb, Cale Bird to Caden Bloom to tie it up.
And they can do that
and
to
then
you.
Kickoff back 95 yards by Owen Prince. Apparently, they called it Statue of Liberty play or something. Shout out to Cole Peterson, the student at UNL, who is kind of
so
tweeting
what
out
it
the
is,
updates.
it's what do we call that play? It's their back is to you. We call it starburst.
Yeah.
The kick is caught, and they run behind you. You can't really see where it's going, and all of a sudden you're out the back gate. Huge game tonight for Owen Prince.
Yeah. So yeah, that's how you take the lead, 34-27. But then after that, you got a lot of ball game left, and they were able to hold on to that lead defensively, toughened up, didn't allow Bennington, because we know how explosive that offense can be. They can score in a hurry, especially with the clear out. You figure they were going to kind of air it out a little bit more than maybe even they normally would, and they had a chance, but forced a fumble inside of 2 minutes, and Plattsmouth recovered to kind of seal the game there.
And the difference between, if you're kind of wondering where these games are being played, you rotate the sites in B. Higher seed holds in A. So that's kind of how that works. So next week in A, we're looking at, well, we got
one more game, yep. And it's another, again, upset.
Yeah.
Kind of crazy. In both A and B, the top half of the brackets were both upsets tonight. So
did not love the way that Norris was playing down the stretch.
And we talked about that a couple weeks now in a row here, ever since that Waverly game. And Aurora takes it 28-21. And again, that's 3 weeks in a row. Norris kind of just struggling a little bit to really control these games. And
I feel like I don't have a good handle on, even though it's a fantastic program. I'm not sure I know what I'm getting with Aurora.
I haven't gotten a chance to really see them at all. Last time I saw them play,
it's been a long time since the Austin Allens and the Baylor, the Shiremans of the world. I knew what I was getting there.
Yeah.
I mean, they were explosive personified. I thought this year would be more rebuilding.
Yeah,
they appear to be reloading. That is a fantastic sports community, and lo and behold, they find themselves in the semis again.
Yeah, and all season long, we kind of look at them in that 7-10 range versus that top six. We thought there were kind of two different tiers there in B, and lo and behold, here we are. They're still playing, and a couple of those teams that we thought were in that top group, they're out. So the craziness in Class B that we saw all season has continued into the playoffs.
Yeah, so you've got Aurora and Plattsmouth.
The 5 versus the 8.
And Elkhorn and Hastings.
3 versus the 2, so seeds held on that side, same as A.
Tell you what. That Hastings-Elkhorn game couldn't be more different in terms of contrasting styles.
Be interesting to see what the weather's like next week, because I know early next week it's starting to get a little bit colder.
Cold. Yeah. And we'll take a look at the matchups in A as well, right? With Westside and Millard South. That's a team that can stop the run against a very versatile offense in Westside. Westside can hand the ball off with Rezak. Cole Payton can hurt you with the QB run game. They've got a plethora of weapons on the outside. They can get in the gun and do it that way. Millard South, you kind of know what you're going to get. But they have really good athletes. Really good athletes. And then on the top half, we get a rematch with Elkhorn South and Kearney. A game that was within one score in overtime. That was a month ago, right?
Yeah, about that. It's a TV game that Thursday, I believe.
Do you want to go out on a limb and predict A and B, or are we just going to let this ride and come back next week and tell stories?
Yeah, I like this analysis thing we're doing where we get to look back versus trying to project here.
That way we don't have to be held accountable, right? You said.
Yeah. I mean,
I don't want to be that guy.
I think you favor Westside and Elkhorn South just the way those two are playing, but again, we got a brand new matchup versus the rematch. We saw already what kind of how rematches have flipped. We saw with Kearney and Bellevue West. If they see you once, you best believe they're going to come with a great game plan.
Yeah, and that happened a week ago, and we get in B, we get Aurora and Plattsmouth. The two teams that everybody picked on that half of the bracket, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Going against the 2-3 on the bottom half in Elkhorn. And I'm drawing a blank now.
Elkhorn and Hastings.
In Hastings. Yeah. The 2-3. Not bad. Will we catch up next week?
Yeah. Yeah.
Collect our thoughts. Oh, don't miss it. This is Nebraska Preps post game. You won't get it anywhere else. Make sure you catch us every week. We'll be back next Friday. That's the man, the myth, the legend. He's one of the best in the business, and I mean that. You know I value my words. That's Jacob Padilla. I'm old DB. They call me Damon Benning. We'll be back next week. Catch us.